I will try and cover a lot of material today. So you will need to, if you're interested, go to my website and get a sense of what I mean by that. I'll go through a lot of slides very quickly. They're not meant to be read. Fortunately, the light is bright, so you can't read them anyway, which is good news. But feel free to look at them at your leisure. I'm going to cover, I decided I'd cover essentially 4 different presentations I often give at the same time. First is the economic opportunity that you know about and some of the criteria around that opportunity. It is, in fact, a very large opportunity because energy and materials are very large businesses. Here's where I start to depart from almost everybody else. I believe we can replace oil in 20 years or less. And we can do it cheaper than oil. I believe we can do the same with coal-based power. Those are radical claims, and I'll talk about them more. What we need is a focus on scaling and economics. And mostly, this is a policy problem, not a technology problem. Now, all those are surprising. Hopefully, you'll be interested enough after my brief talk today. I've taken up to 3 hours to give this talk. That if you're interested, you look at the website. So, I think we've gone through various parts of this Mahatma Gandhi quote, and I believe this is where we are today. We've been ignored, we've been laughed at. I think we are at the fight stage. We are being taken seriously on all fronts. Just to give you a sense of the scale of resistance we are likely to see and why this is not going to be easy, every $4 change in the price of oil is worth $1 trillion to Saudi Arabia. A country, I'll try and speak louder than that bell. A country smaller than California makes $1 trillion in asset value every time the price of oil changes. Of course, there's others who are entrenched. And companies like Ebony Coal spend more on policy, on lobbying than they do on R&D. In fact, a higher percentage of revenue is spent on lobbying than on R&D. So let me talk about the rules we use in deciding 2 things. And I'll try and differentiate good investments which may make you lots of money, like wind, which have nothing to do with climate change and are completely irrelevant to climate change, or even photovoltaics, which are great investments, but probably not material to climate change. I know many of you are surprised. Things that matter, land efficiency. The only solution I can think of for transportation is liquid fuels that come off land. So the thing that matters the most is how many miles you can drive per acre. And I'll come back to this issue. The second thing that matters just as much is cost. You know, forget plug-ins. They're nice toys. They will not be material to climate change. They will be great investments. Hydrogen's not even a toy. It's a bad idea. 2, don't listen to most of what the environmentalists say, because they come up with solutions that can't scale. What do I mean by that? You can't have wind supply a network because you need what's called pulse power or power of utility grade. You can't tell somebody you can't watch their NFL game because the wind isn't blowing. It just doesn't work. Finally, none of this works at scale if it's dependent on subsidies. So the only way we solve this problem is if these solutions are cheaper than oil or coal-based power. Subsidies work only at such a small scale that the scale doesn't matter. And so what we have to do is what hopefully this group is looking at. How do you invest in stuff and make money? Capital formation from private investors is the key to this business. Second, people say, hey, states are good and bad at certain times. This is renewable solar resources in the country. These are the wind resources in the country. These are the, I'm moving very quickly, these are the biomass resources in the country. This is the geothermal resource in the country. That's where the Midwestern corn is coming from. If you add all those, pretty much every part of the country has a renewable resource. They all don't have the same resource. So no state will be left behind. This is important because politics is important and policy are important. By the way, I was asked to tell everybody to turn off their cell phones and Blackberries because it's being a podcast and this interferes with the webcast. The second thing we have to do in some of the detractors, some extreme environmentalists, some oil companies and coal companies like to get into the negatives of these solutions. There are negatives. There are individual shortcomings. But the question is, on the whole, is this a better solution? So the question becomes not what's good or bad about something new, it's which is a better alternative overall, and which risk or gamble do we want to take. I won't repeat them. It's obvious to me. The next thing is biases. I find most people's assumptions in this area are mired in biases. I can't imagine why corn ethanol, with all its negatives, isn't substantially better than hybrids.